for a Q&A session after we have heard from our final speaker this morning, who is going to be Owen Keogh from Lidl. It's not that many years ago since the supermarkets and the retailers were, for the most part, just not engaged with the food waste agenda at all. But that is not true any longer. The level of engagement, the level of involvement, the level to which supermarkets and retailers are helping shape and drive this process now has changed very, very radically, in fairness to them. So I'm very pleased to ask Owen Keogh from Lidl, who I don't think we have heard from at one of these forums before, to share with us what it is that motivated Lidl to get involved and to embrace the food waste reduction agenda, and indeed what targets they have set for themselves now. Good morning to you, Owen.
Morning. Thank you very much for having me on today. It's fantastic to be able to join a forum like this for the first time, to be able to talk through what we're doing at a retail level, specifically in Lidl, to tackle the issue of food waste. So over the next few minutes, I'm just going to run through some of the things you just mentioned. But to start, for us at Lidl, corporate social responsibility or sustainability plan is called the Better Tomorrow, and it's central to our business. I am the head of corporate social responsibility within the business, and essentially my role is to try and embed the practice that's ingrained in that strategy across all of the 6,000 colleagues that work across the island of Ireland within the business. That strategy has 4 different pillars: protecting the environment, Team Lidl, responsible sourcing, and Lidl Community Works. When we think about food waste and food redistribution, it interacts with the 2 of those pillars, protecting the environment and Lidl Community Works. So how we engage within the communities that we operate in and serve and also source from. And then also, how do we look at reducing our food waste from an environmental perspective. Bear with me now, and I'll just move on the slides. Hopefully that has moved on. Perhaps not. There we go. So what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is just talk through us as a business. I know many people will be aware of Lidl, but we have some information behind that. Our commitments, as you mentioned, food waste, and then some of the initiatives in measuring food waste within our retail operations. So when you think about Lidl as an organisation, we are proud to hit the major milestone of 20 years in Ireland in 2020 and in Northern Ireland in 2019. Currently, we have 211 stores across the island of Ireland, with over 2 million customers passing through our doors every week. And our commitment as a business is to deliver high quality products at market leading prices, which has helped drive our remarkable growth over that period. We also have 4 distribution centres across the island of Ireland, which service each of those stores. So it's been an incredible journey over the last number of years, but we wouldn't have been able to do that without the communities we source from. And we're proud of the strong, long-standing relationships we've established with local suppliers all across the island of Ireland, and the positive impact we've made on those communities and the communities we operate within. Many of these suppliers have been working with us since we first opened our doors back in 1999, Northern Ireland, or 2000 in the Republic. And supplier innovation has been central to us being able to offer new products to customers and exciting products, as well as progressing our own sustainability goals. And we have a long history of working with those suppliers on those new innovations. We're proud now that we're working with suppliers to source over €1 billion worth of Irish produce across the island of Ireland in financial year 2020, and that 40% of our everyday assortment is from local suppliers. And then also that we've helped local organisations grow their businesses by exporting €500 million worth of produce from the island of Ireland to other Lidl countries across Europe. So it's important to note, us as a business, we are obviously part of a broader international Lidl setup. I just move the slides on again. Bear with me now. There we go. So as I mentioned, we're part of a larger organisation. Lidl International has 10,000 stores across Europe. And when we look at food waste and our targets, we look to our international group and setting a 50% target, 50% reduction target by 2030 in line with SDG 12.3. As an organisation across all of our 10,000 stores, so quite a large operation, we rely on optimised scheduling, short transport routes, innovative logistics systems, and a continuous cold chain to avoid food waste. I'll just make sure the slides are moving on there. The measures that sorry, I'm just working out the slides here, bear with me. The measures that we have for avoiding food waste are geared towards the entire value chain. So looking at where we source products right through to our shop floor, especially where they're nearing the end of our shelf life, where we have a lot of control. Our approach for linking up with local communities and giving away food that can no longer be sold, but is still suitable for consumption to charitable organisations such as food banks plays a central role, and we'll go back to that in a minute. And our customers also make a significant contribution to avoiding food waste by what they do at home, storing food waste properly, and by trusting their own judgment when dealing with best before dates. So we just move the slides on again. In terms of what we've been doing, I think for us, it starts with the basics, and that's forecast accuracy. So our buying teams cautiously forecasting the quantities of fresh and perishable products that we need within our stores to minimize overstock and ensure fresh availability for customers. Second to that, we introduced a program in 2019 called Waste Not, which was an initiative where chilled products at best before dates receive a huge price reduction for customers, and we've seen a massive uptake of that since we launched that in 2019, and that's Lidl Ireland and Northern Ireland only. From a food redistribution point of view, we've been working with FoodCloud, one of our main partners, since 2017 to help redistribute over 3 million meals now to local community and charities across Ireland. Food recovery, so their circular economy, is also quite important to us, and I'll go on to that in a moment, where we use anaerobic digestion to convert food into energy. For example, in Northern Ireland, the trucks that deliver the food to our stores, a range of them are actually running on biofuel or biomethane from our own operations. As I said as well, what's really important is what customers do in their own home. And we want to help customers to reduce food waste at home. And we use our own platforms to amplify the voice of organisations affecting change in that space. So stopfoodwaste.ie as an example. Excuse me. And then the Food Waste Forum Charter. So we've signed this as part of the Retail Action Group for Food. And this charter sees us commit to reducing food waste through the redistribution of surplus food. And as part of the Food Waste Charter, we pledge to build an awareness and understanding of food waste and its issues, as well as to promote innovative food waste prevention solutions. The Retail Action Group for Food Waste intends to work together to gather and share reliable and accurate food waste information, to identify areas for improvement and to measure progress, and also to work towards common methodology for reporting on food waste data in the sector. If we move to the next slide. Thank you. And if you click through, then again, I mentioned a new initiative that we've been looking at as well, and to add to the range of initiatives I've just run through, which is Biofuel in Northern Ireland. Essentially, how that works is certain categories of food waste are collected from all of our stores in Northern Ireland. They're then backhauled to a specific plant where they're converted to biomethane, which is then used by our logistics partner, McCullough, to fuel the logistics fleet responsible for doing our food deliveries, delivering our food to our stores in Northern Ireland. And per truck, we're looking at an emissions reduction of up to 93% per vehicle. So we're quite happy with that, and we're looking to drive on with that with McCullough over the coming years. If you go to the next slide, please. I mentioned already what we've been doing with FoodCloud, and I think a number of people have mentioned FoodCloud already. And it's an app that connects businesses that have too much food with charities working in communities that have too little food. And the food surplus donation program works in conjunction with the FoodCloud app, Foodiverse. So all of our stores, regional distribution centres, and our head office even are connected to charities through FoodCloud and through that app. And for us, it helps, in particular, our stores build local relationships with community and charity groups, obviously reducing our environmental impact by directing what would be food waste out to local communities. And for us as a business, reducing food disposal costs. If we move to the next slide, we hit the milestone there recently of donating 3 million meals since starting with FoodCloud to local community and charity groups. And we also, in the middle of the COVID pandemic last year, included a donation of €50,000 worth of essential food items through the Food for Ireland appeal, supporting those local community and charity groups when they needed it most. So as I said, they're just some of the things we're doing at a retail level. If you want to click through to the next slide, it's fantastic to be able to just share a little bit about what we're doing and how we're trying to tackle waste through the value chain. So looking at our own operations, looking at communicating out to customers, tips and any other information they may find useful for reducing food waste in the home, but also looking at our value chain as well. So with that, I'll hand you back, and thank you very much for the opportunity today.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Owen. That's absolutely brilliant. Do stay with us, though, because we're also joined by Des, by Colin, by Sebastian, by Helen here in studio with me to deal with some of your questions that have come in. Please do keep on posting them on those tabs, the Q&A tab up there. We'll jump straight in with a question, I suppose, Helen, that reminds us why it is that we're doing all of this at the end of the day, that it's not ultimately about cost, it's not ultimately about doing the right thing, it is about saving the planet and reducing emissions, because there's a question from Anonymous who says, would the EPA agree with including food loss and waste associated with greenhouse gas emissions into Ireland's nationally determined contributions? The NDCs are the pledges that are being made at COP26. I think this is probably, in fairness to you, a question that's a little bit above your pay grade, because the EPA doesn't get to determine what is and isn't included in those.
Yeah, I mean, that is very much, I suppose, a national policy question, but I think we can all agree that, food waste does contribute significantly to our greenhouse gas emissions, so it is something that should be considered.
Yeah, and we now have a much better handle with your figures on exactly what we're talking about. Just remind us again, please, so that it's at the front of our minds as we continue this. What are we talking about in terms of our best guess estimate now, what we're talking about in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions?
Well, we haven't determined that for food as a whole, because it's just so complicated, and we have started to look at it, but you're looking at it across the supply chain, and a lot of the available data is quite old, so we do feel that's something that could benefit from some research. But
generally speaking, if internationally we're looking at 10%,
yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, is there any reason to assume that we would be that radically different to everybody else?
No, I think we probably are in that region, but it would be great to have something more specific to Ireland.
Okay. This is a question from Jean Clark to, I presume, Keeling's, Des, because I can't see anybody else contributing to the conversation today who has glass houses. She wants to know, do you waste heat or other sustainable energy to heat your glass houses?
Do we waste heat?
Well, there's actually two ways of looking at that question, because it might have been mistyped. Do you use waste heat, or do you end up wasting heat?
We don't end up wasting heat. We generate our own heat for our glass houses, but the vast majority of what we grow is in tunnels outside.
Okay, just using the sun's power and
just using the sun's power, etc. Yeah.
And there was another question there that was aimed at you. Percy Foster would like to know, do you use PLU stickers on fruit such as melons, etc.? And if yes, do you have any plans to eliminate them or to use compostable stickers? What is a PLU sticker?
So it's a sticker that you'll probably get on maybe onto a apple that has a particular variety on it. So you'll see them. They're like some are paper, some are plastic. And the short answer is yes. We're currently working with our suppliers at the moment to decide I suppose, what type of material we're going to use going forward. But that's on our agenda at the moment.
Okay. Des, I was really interested in what you were saying about the impact of climate events and bad weather on your shipping and logistics arrangements. By definition, you can't plan for unscheduled climate events, or can you? Are you succeeding with what you were talking about, putting 2 drivers into trucks and so on, in building a little bit of extra wriggle time into your shipping logistics?
Well, the short answer is yes, we can if it's generally within Europe. But if you have fruit coming, say from South America, that's very difficult. Once the ship's halfway across the Atlantic and it hits a storm, it's impossible to plan for that. But certainly, if you take fruit that comes in from Spain this time of year, yes, we do. So we look at those routes. We've been working with our existing operators and new operators to adjust and amend as where we can. But you can make inroads in that. We've just worked with an operator there recently where we're going to shorten the transport route by 1 day. So that has a huge impact on waste and surplus food, for that matter.
And give us an idea, if you can. It's probably an unfair question to throw at you. I don't expect exact figures. But how big an impact, how much waste has ended up being generated because of Brexit, number one, or because of these unforeseen climate events?
Well, the percentage number is if I look at 2020, the percentage number is 0.04% of our entire the entire year's production. That is, it's nearly zero. So in terms of tonnage, that's about 30 tons.
Okay, so it doesn't sound big in terms of the overall operations, but still 30 tons of food is 30 tons of food.
Yeah, it's 30 tons, and that's why, our journey is to bring that to zero, and we think we can get there. We actually do believe we can get there in the next number of years.
Owen, has this been a big factor for you recently, both Brexit-related delays and climate?
Yeah, I suppose Brexit has been a big challenge for any retailer over the last year, I suppose, but we've managed it quite well from our side. I know that our logistics team in particular looked at where things were coming from and adjusting certain routes depending on potential delays at ports and so on. There's an awful lot to consider, as you can imagine, with the thousands of products that we have on our shelves on a daily basis. So there has been some impact, but we've worked through it quite successfully over the last year, as I imagine customers have seen with the reliability and the availability of certain products on our shelves. From a climate point of view, it's something that we're actively engaging suppliers on to gather information on when those events do happen and how we can help them with it.
Helen, I want to be a little bit chronological here and go back to what you were saying at the very outset about this standard measurement protocol. If I am a factory owner, will engaging with this, adopting this protocol, mean that I'm going to end up having to make physical changes to my factory floor, or is it really all about systems and administration?
I think gathering your data is about systems and administration. What we would hope is when you have a clear picture of what you're producing, what food losses or waste you're producing at different points in your production, that may mean you see changes that you can make. So initially,
but I suppose what I'm really asking you is, for somebody who isn't engaged with it yet and might be slightly fearful about how disruptive it possibly could be for them, is it?
No, not at all. The first stage is really just using data that you have already and using the systems you have in place and engaging with that. But no, there's no physical changes in the first step in this. It's really just getting your head engaged in looking at your food waste and then what you can do.
Colin, one of the most fascinating pieces of data that you had collected was how much was being lost in unserved food. Ordering food in is not a science. It's a little bit of an art form. I think most people, most hoteliers, most restaurateurs would tell you, because you might have to factor in whether the weather is good or not. Is there something good on telly that night or not that'll keep people in and not in your restaurant? Have you found that for those in the hospitality sector who have engaged with you, who have taken these measurements and then applied them to their ordering, that they're able to make a little bit more of a science of it and less of an art form?
Well, with this measurement, Philip, we're still actually in the piloting phase of the work that we're doing at the moment. So, whether that's been used to that extent as of yet, I don't think so. However, I mentioned the case study from Connor Spacey that we did, and that was one of the points that he made. He said, look, restaurateurs and hoteliers are very good at ordering. They know their gross profit on meals. They know what they need. They know what they need to order in. They're very lean in terms of their food ordering system. And his contention was that that's not that kind of forensic examination or knowledge with regard to food ordering does not translate all the way to the back door. And that's what he had started to do. He had started to use his data to kind of connect the dots between what was being wasted and what was being ordered. Another one of the people we engaged with, very interesting, ran a small family business. And his kind of view on food waste was, if food waste comes back from a plate or if food waste goes into the bin from the kitchen, he said, that's a problem of our making. And that's something that they have to look at. And I thought it was interesting because this guy I was talking to, he was intimately involved with every stage of the process, from ordering, prep, serving, and then bringing the food back in. So he would have seen it all. And I think in a lot of larger institutions that overview of all aspects of the process can sometimes be missed. The chef producing may not see the volume of food coming back. That's just the nature of the production system. So I think what you mentioned, Philip, is the nub of it. We need to make this a business metric, and that's what using the data that's coming back from waste collectors is about. It's about making it easy. Going in and doing a waste composition analysis in a kitchen is a hard job. It's time consuming, and in a busy kitchen, especially now with staffing issues, it's very hard to get people to do it. What we're trying to do, though, is use the information in a constructive manner and then link it into the already well-defined financial models that these businesses have in place.
Are there many bin collection services that still aren't offering people their weight of their wheelie bins? I mean, people will remember that this whole pay-by-weight furore that was created 3 years ago, and I know in the case of my own bin provider, they took the weights off the bills, and there's no way of knowing what it is now. Is this an issue for restaurateurs and for people in the hospitality sector generally?
Yeah, it is. We're working on the Department of Agriculture project at the moment with businesses in small areas, and it's a food waste prevention project, small businesses. And when we started it, we expected to go in and just have all this information, but the bills were so haphazard, even from the same service provider in the same area. Some were being provided with weights, others were not. Some of the bills we've encountered through this pilot have been pretty confusing to decipher. I'm used to looking at electricity bills, which can be pretty complex. Some of the waste bills have been, really hard to decipher, and that's for us when we're looking at them on a regular basis. So yes, to answer your question, there are a lot of them still on bin lifts, and even when they go and they ask their waste collector for their weights, they haven't been provided with them. They say that they don't have them. One case, the waste collector said that they didn't have waste values, but this particular business was getting weight excess charges on their bins. So it's this is very fundamental stuff, but it is getting the information back. But the waste collectors have the data, and one of our recommendations is, look, if you're on a bin lift system, change it. These are service providers. Your waste collector is a service provider.
I was just going to say, have you come across many people who have said, well, if you don't give me the weight, I'm going to move service to somebody who will?
Yes, and it would be a recommendation we'd make if you're not getting a service that's fit for purpose, then change. Obviously, in certain areas around the country, there's limited availability of alternatives, but in most cases there are. And yes, I think it is very important. Again, going back to Conor Spacey's example, that was one of the first things he did. He looked at the information he was getting back from his waste collector, asked them to change. They didn't. He changed, and now he's getting weekly stats, and he can monitor it. And he has used that to very good effect. But it took him a year. I think Twana earlier this morning mentioned that this takes time. We need businesses now to start using this measurement sort of method. It is pretty straightforward, but we then need to start aggregating it and using the collective information to identify what we can do and the targets that sectors specifically need to address and target.
And one more question to you, please, Colm, that arises from your slides, particularly the one on the amount of food waste ending up in general waste bins. Why, in your experience, and I know it is limited, maybe not necessarily statistically representative, but why, in your experience, were the hotels so much better than the canteens? As in less food waste ending up in the general waste bins of the hotels rather than the canteens?
They were just, we only piloted this with 7 businesses, so it's a small data set. They just happened to be,
good at it.
Good hotels. Yeah, they were good at it. Also, with canteens as well, sometimes it depends on how the waste management is set up. If you've got the customer managing the waste themselves, putting it into a bin, that can be an issue. But there was a distinct difference between those 2 particular hotels and all the others. And this just corroborates the 2018 waste characterization data, which indicated that there's a lot of waste going into the general waste stream. And when you look at one of the things that we kind of would always say is, start at the back door, make sure that your bin system at the back door is fit for purpose. They're in the same place. A lot of waste management compounds are a mess. Bins are left in different places. So it becomes very confusing then for staff, often in places where there's a turnover of staff and things are changing all the time. So internal systems can often be very well evolved and defined. Externally, it's an area that people tend to overlook.
Okay. Sebastian, we have a question from Margaret Coles, who says she really loves Danone's campaign to encourage consumers to taste before wasting. Are they aware if other food processors and retailers are embracing this message?
Actually, we started very early with Too Good To Go in this movement, but there is a lot of other companies who joined the movement afterwards. So I think more and more the campaign is picking up. But I think there is several categories, biscuits as well, and some other even retailers are engaged with us to push that forward and this messaging forward.
How hard was it for you as a Europe-wide company to make this transition in so many different jurisdictions from use by to best before? Is there a degree of national similarity, or did you have to basically go to the food safety authorities of 27 EU nations and say, can we or can't we do this?
So the good thing is that we have the same legislation, European legislation as a base, and then what we did, so we took this as a base foundation, But also then we looked at specifically in each country, so in Ireland, but also in the UK, if there was some specific guidance or specific or differences to build our risk assessment. So today our risk assessment is based on the European legislation and on the EFSA report, but also with the local specificities, if there is any, per country.
I was fascinated by your decision to delist certain very, very wasteful products. Are you allowed to say which ones?
No.
Well, were there many?
No, I mean, there were not so many, but I think as any business, and I think it's not a big science behind that, but you have your whole portfolio and then you have the tails, what we call the product which are at the bottom of the ranking. And those ones usually are the ones which are selling less. And then to produce them, to bring them to the market, etc., they are generating more waste than any other. So there were not a lot, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we delisted hundreds of products, but nevertheless, yes, we had some decisions to make to say, okay, look, this is a low runner as such. We are generating this amount of waste.
So basically, they were not long-term sustainable. Is that the sort of the determination you made?
Yeah. And I think what was more interesting as well is the way we also include that in innovation projects. So when we were bringing new products beforehand, we were just, okay, let's sit down and let's look at the projection of waste that could be generated from that. And then this is how also we made some decisions to say, we need to stop some projects. We need to maybe postpone, try to have more customers buying in, etc., etc.
I want to address, or get both you and Owen to address for me, what is one of the most interesting aspects of what you were talking about. And just tell me, please, from a starting point, why was it that Danone identified that it was in its interests to educate its consumers? Because presumably, if consumers are being wasteful, they're going to buy more of your product. Why teach them how to buy less?
I think for me, it's just a question of I'm coming back a little bit to what I said earlier on the DNA that we have. Yes, we are a business and we have that, but we are also really engaged towards the planet. And one of our big motto is one planet, one health. So obviously, we need to make sure that we feel that we have a mission as well to educate our consumers to what is good for the planet as well, and not only for the business. So I think it's really something which is ethical, that resonates with us, actually.
Owen, how would you deal with that, or how would you answer a very cold-hearted chief financial officer or shareholder who would say, why on earth are you minimizing or reducing sales with engagement with this food waste agenda?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. I really enjoyed Sebastian's quote earlier in saying responsibility goes beyond the factory gate, and for us as a retailer, our responsibility and even what we want to do in serving customers goes beyond just the doors of our outlets. And for us, the main thing we're trying to do is encourage a positive customer experience, both within our outlets, but also at home. And if that's, enjoying our products as much as customers can, then and if reducing food waste is part of that and educating customers around that, then that's something we'll look to do. And in terms of looking at sales and waste, one of the programs I mentioned earlier on, and many of the things we do on food waste, our Waste Not program is looking at serving customers with even cheaper options of food, which otherwise would become waste for us. So it's actually trying to, in a way, increase sales and reduce waste costs, because we are selling products that would otherwise be going to waste at a discounted rate to customers. So I think there's an argument for the consumer education piece, definitely, and also for the sales piece internally within a retailer.
And I think just to build on that, because as I mentioned, some other countries were moved a bit earlier than us, etc., etc. And so far, honestly, there is no impact. We are not selling less because of that. So I think I wouldn't say it's a myth, but honestly, so far there is no impact at all. And I think it's much more a way to engage with consumers. But sales remain the same.
Mm-hmm. If there's no negative impact on sales, is there perhaps a reputational enhancement for, well, both Owen, for you in Lidl, and Sebastian, you in Danone? Owen.
Yeah. As I said, from a reputation point of view, what we're trying to do is create a positive customer experience for as many customers as we can. And if educating customers around, the benefits of reducing food waste in home is a positive experience, which I think it is, then that completely serves that.
Do you have evidence, Sebastian, that it has improved your reputation in your customers' eyes?
I think first of all, we had some consumer contact contacting us to say, great, I saw your campaign or your partnership with Too Good To Go, and it looks great. So we can see that the positive engagement from people who are seeing that. I think as we are rolling out this campaign, we are still a bit early in the process, but we have some green shoots already. People appreciating that and the commitment that we took on that.
Okay. All right, Sebastian, Owen, Des, Colm and Helen, thank you all very much. You'll remember that I asked you much earlier on, would you please contribute to a word cloud that we were trying to assemble by answering the question, in tackling food waste, what supports would you like to see? Unfortunately, I wasn't specific enough, and there was one or two people who wrote a few essays, which meant that we ended up with all sorts of prepositions and nouns in there that weren't particularly helpful. But take a look at that and extract from it what you will, and you can do so again at your leisure, because what we are going to do is make, if you've missed sections of this that you want to go back and listen to any of the sessions, any of the contributors from any of the sessions today, revisit this address on your Slido, and you will be able to, for the next 24 hours or so, rewind your way through it. And thereafter, then the EPA is going to put the whole event up on its YouTube channel, so you can go back at your leisure, look at that word cloud, or look at any of the contributions from any of our contributors. And can I just, before we go, remind you why it is that we are doing what we're doing, and asking people to try and make effective pledges to reduce their food waste at all these various different points in the supply chain. And that is because, and I have to bear in mind, in case people are watching this in the future, we are talking today on Thursday, the 4th of November. We're halfway through the COP26 conference. Before it started, all of the pledges from world leaders amounted to 2.7 degrees of warming being maintained, which would be an absolutely hellish world for us all to live in. And the good news that I'm getting from the fringes of COP26 is an unofficial figure. It's not a figure that has come from the United Nations Secretariat, but one that has been worked out by scientists in NGOs. So there's a health warning over the figure, but it would suggest that the pledges that have come in since the start of the conference now amount to maintaining warming at 1.9 degrees. So down below 2 degrees, which was a key target and objective of the Paris Agreement. 1.9 degrees of warming is, make no mistake, still a pretty hellish world to live in. We are only at 1.1, 1.2 now. You know, at 1.9, the Maldives and the Marshall Islands and very many other places will disappear. Our food supply networks will be completely disrupted. But it is still proof that what we are doing, this process that we are all engaged in now, even the smallest sector of greenhouse gas contributions being food waste in Ireland, making improvements there will actually hopefully make a very, very big difference in the long term. And that is why, and I think it's an important reminder at this point to just say that is why we are doing what it is that we are doing here. I hope you learned an awful lot today. I know that I did. I've never failed to come away from these things having not learned something, and every day that's a learning day or a school day is a good day. So on that note, on that end, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to all of the contributors. Please don't forget to answer the question up there in the tab on the survey. We want to make sure that we know who it is that wants to engage on a sector by sector basis as we move forward, and the EPA will make contact with you after you've done that. But on that note, with hopefully all of that made clear to you, can I say thank you very much for listening. It has been a really, really educational and enlightening day for us here. I hope it has for you too. Good luck, take care, thanks for watching.